Now let us go and install one of the dependency over here that will be of the Pydantic settings over here. We will use this one to get the read all of our environment variable, because for configuring our database we need to set up the environment variable to set the database password, URLs, and all of this stuff, right? So let's go back to our the project over here. Let's go to the requirements.txt and let's add our dependency that will be of the Pydantic. That's the settings over here. And let's go and run the pip install over here. And once the installation is successful, what we can do now is let's go back to our core and let's add the one more folder over here, and let's call this one as the, I guess the config would be better, or if you find a different naming convention you can just go and create that. And let's create the new file over here, and we'll call this one as the we require the env config, right? So env underscore the config.py file over here. And once we have that, let's go back to our root of the project and let's create the new file, and that will be the .env file over here. And currently we will be just using a single file, but later in case we require a multiple env file, then we'll come back over here. We will always start with some of the basic configuration, and later we are going to change it once the requirements are popped in. But for at the beginning we'll always start with this simple configuration. And over here what we require for our configuration is, for now we just require the database configuration, right? Like the username, password, host, and all of this stuff. So let's just go and add those things over here. We require the db user, db password, name, port, and then the host over here. And for now I have given a default value over here, and in case if you require to set up a different one, you can obviously go and change it here on the later stage. So let's just go and I'll just go and add the database name. I'll just go and set it the db name as the user management app over here, and a simple user, and then the password over here. Or if you want, you can always go and set it as a default one, which is of the Postgres as well. But for now, let's just go and keep it as simple over here. And once we have set this env configuration, we need to go to our config file, and in our config file we need to read all of this configuration so we can later make use in our code over here. So for that, let's create the class over here, and let's call this one as the env config, I guess. And for the base setting we need to import that one, right? So let's just go and I need to import from the Pydantic setting that we have previously installed. We import the base setting over here. And here what I require is what we have defined over here is the db user, right? db password. So I'll just go and call this one as the db underscore the user, and that will be of the string over here. We have the db password, which will be type is of the string, db name type is of the string, db port will be of the int, as well as the db host will be of the string as well. So now whatever we have defined here, 1 2 3 4 5 variables that we have defined should be over here, 1 2 3 4 5. So all of those 5 variables have been added over here. The next thing that we have to do over here is let's go and create one of the variable. Let's call this one as the model c1fig model config, and that will be from the setting config the dictionary over here. Let's call this one from our Pydantic setting over here. Let's import that. We should import that over here, and once we have that one, we need to load the env file over here. So env file will be of the whatever file that you have defined. We have the .env, so let's give that particular name as the .env over here, and we need to pass in the encoding. So let's just make use of the utf-8. That will be pretty good over here. And we can also make use of the case sensitive right? So if you want to make it as a case sensitive, or you don't want to make use, so I'll just say the case sensitive as a false, because we have the lowercase and we have the uppercase over here, right? So that is what we have defined. So I'm just going to set it as the false over here for the case sensitive over here. And I'll also going to say the extra, right? So ex not over here, sorry for that, it should not be okay. So here I need to go and say the extra, and I'll just go and say the ignore. That's going to ignore any of the variables that we haven't defined, right? So you can just go and setting ignore the or discard the unexpected environment variables. So now with this particular configuration, we should be able to read the env file that we have defined over here, and we can later make use of all of these variables that we have defined in our env config to our code over here. So later once we create our database, the instance over here, we need to make use of this one over here. So that's all for this over here.